As we've said several times, the goal of learning is to get people to take the learning from the classroom and actually apply it on the job. And that's step D, application, applying learning in the real world. And so you, as an associate trainer, have a role to play in helping the learner transfer that learning out of the classroom and applying it back on the job. So let's talk about some things you can do to really do that effectively. And some of these things you do in the classroom, and some of these things you will need to do after the classroom. In the classroom, you will help the learner create an action plan and effectively tie that learning back to the faces and places they identified at the beginning of the day. And so this is reminding the learners, you already talked about the people with whom you will apply these learnings. And you've talked about the situations where you will apply those learnings. So the question you need to answer is, okay, when specifically and with whom specifically will I do that? Next Tuesday, during my team meeting at 10 a.m., I will practice this skill that I've learned. So you want them to become really specific about when and where. But then you also want to ask them, how will you get feedback, or how will you reflect on what they've done? As we talked about in the debrief section, that reflection and feedback is an important mechanism to help the learning really solidify. So it's not just enough to ask them, when will you practice the skill? And then how will you reflect on how well you did? And will anyone be able to give you any feedback about how you did? And you should build that into your plan. So if Tuesday at 10 a.m., I'm going to practice this skill during my team meeting, then at 11 a.m., I need to sit down and spend 15 minutes getting some feedback and reflecting on what did I do well and what can I do differently next time. So your job in the class is to help them build a plan that is that specific and that detailed. Now let's talk about what else you can do after the class. We really would like you to be involved not in the classroom, but with the learners when they're back on the job. And there's basically three key things you can do to help support this transfer of learning. The first is in the area of social learning. We know that people like to learn when they are supported by other people. So I would encourage you to set up a group using WeChat, Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp, Line, whatever, but something for this group of learners, and actively curate that discussion in the weeks after the class by asking participants, what have you applied? How did it go? What have you tried? Maybe share your own tips and reminders, share links to articles or other information that might be useful, but use this as a way to actively help people bridge from the classroom into the real world. You might also convene a check-in session or a community of practice a couple of weeks afterwards. This might be just 60 or 90 minutes long, but get them together to review what they've learned, share their progress, share their experiences, and really encourage each other. We also want you to follow up, so either meeting in person or virtually with the participants, and ideally with their managers, just to discuss, how are you applying this learning? How's your action plan coming? Checking in on the progress of in-job learning, and then also asking participants to share their stories and experiences, including their failures and successes with you, so that you can incorporate these as examples into your next class. Of course, changing names and places if necessary, but getting examples nonetheless. And then finally, you can follow up with your learning and development team around the measurement of success. Remember those Kirkpatrick levels of measurement. The level 1 evaluations, any quizzes or exams, and even the level 3 behavior change survey. These results will help you know how well you did, so you can use that feedback to improve your training delivery, but it will also give you information about any learners who it might be useful for you to follow up and help reinforce some areas that they're struggling or need some additional support. So these are all things you can do, and I'd like you to think about, how do you support the successful learning transfer as an associate trainer?